Kris, it's wonderful to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out for the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You bet. So let's begin our journey before we get into your good work by asking you this. We're on the 5 year anniversary of this pandemic. We were thrown into the unknown. Hopefully, we've come out the other side better.
hmm
Ultimately, living through that pandemic, how much of living through that, how much has affected your life today that you still deal with that has changed the way that you live?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. That is crazy. We are at the 5 year, and this is the first year I didn't actually realize it. So,
Good. I was waiting for somebody to say that. It's like when 9/11, you're like, wait, it's 9/11. So, you
yeah,
know,
yeah, that's kind of wild. It didn't actually hit me this time. So that's exciting.
yeah.
Um, Honestly, I think it changed entirely how me and my family do life. Portland. Portland pretty much shut down for like 2 years.
Yeah.
So, it was maybe one of the more extreme versions of that. So I have a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old. So they were very young when that happened. And it definitely they changed by that. And I also think we really stepped into our truest version of ourselves because of that, because we had that level of isolation and just kind of rethinking and having the space to be like, what's working, what's not, and like toss it if it's not. And so as I look back on us 5 years ago, like the way I operate business or think about just relationships, all of it is so different than it was, and not in a bad way. Like, I think it took time to figure out what that looked like, but now I feel like I've settled into it and feel almost a level of gratitude for it because it has allowed me to be more true to myself.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. One part of your focus is mental health.
hmm
I'm curious if I put you in front of a bunch of grade school kids,
Yeah.
fifth or sixth graders, it's career day, and the kid in the back of the room is like, hey, what do you do for a living? How do you
Mm.
boil down what you do and make it make sense to them?
Yeah. I mean, really, I just help people try and align with their truest and best selves. So, however that looks to get there, I've gone through a lot of different iterations of what that looks like. And at this point, I was able to, because of the pandemic, really rethink what my business would look like. At the time, I was doing health coaching on the side of a corporate career that I left the corporate career because it just didn't align for me. And so, being an entrepreneur has given me so much freedom, and to be able to really like fill my days with the things that I love. That's what I would, follow your passion and find the things that light you up. And then you will inevitably find like the way to monetize that or make it allow you to have a really great lifestyle. Like, just because it seems obscure, like cold plunging, it can totally be the thing.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of it.
So what did you want to be when you were a kid? What was your ideal dream life?
I don't think I ever had like a one thing. I would go all over the place. I thought I wanted to be an architect for a while. That was a weird one. I wanted that. I think I wanted to be a teacher at one point. But I think that underlying entrepreneurialism is that was always there. I have a strong like I just swear it's in my blood. It's like three generations at least deep on my mom's side, and it's just like it was undeniable. So I think I couldn't figure it out or like put a name to it when I was little, just because it was harder to see that and see what
Yeah.
the options were.
So take me back to your childhood, where you were born and raised. You mentioned coming from a bloodline of entrepreneurs, but
Mhm.
even the mental health part and
Yeah.
and the health and fitness, all of those things. How did those seeds get planted and evolve into who you are today?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I grew up just outside Portland, Oregon, and I'm a rare, basically native. I moved away for a year, but came back. And when I think about the mental health component, which is really like the underlying piece in anything that I do, it came from my grandma. So my grandma and I were very, very close. We would do like sleepovers every Friday night. Like, we were very, very close. And she had mental health struggles for as long as I knew her. So she was bipolar, but in the 80s, you didn't really talk about that much, or you didn't have a lot of language to be able to understand that. But she and I were close enough. She would tell me when she was too sad to get out of bed or things along those lines. And so I saw a very human side of those struggles and I saw her at her ups and downs. And I think that just really lit in me a desire to make a difference and help people feel better because everybody deserves to feel better no matter what your struggles are.
So who's been your hero? Who's been that inspirational force for you to lead your company and to do all of these things that you've done in your life?
I think honestly, my grandma is probably the one that there, I have a really amazing family and I could pick a few from that, but I think she was the one that was like the silent leader in all of the things. And so I just kind of watched how she loved people so deeply, honored her struggle, and always showed up with such kindness for people. And so, all of those things are pieces that I try and carry forward, whether it's in my personal life or any other aspect. Like, you just don't know the impact that you can have on someone. And we still talk about that. She's been gone for 8 years, and we still talk about the ways that she would go to a garage sale and somebody would comment on her shirt and she was like, "Do you want it?" And she would literally go swap it and give it to them. So,
Yeah.
I try and live as best I can by some of those examples.
So from the world of entrepreneurs and CEOs that exist in the world, if you could meet one of them that maybe you look up to or that you emulate a little bit that might help you on your journey, ask them questions, who would that be?
It's gonna sound like a predictable one, but Oprah's always my one.
Okay.
So, yep, she's all, and it's because, when I grew up and stuff, like I remember watching her after school and just like being in such awe. And I continue to be like, I still listen to her podcast. I still am just astounded by the ways that she brings wisdom and light and really like so much authenticity into the world. And I always like to like visualize what would it be like to be interviewed for Super Soul Sundays in her backyard in
Yep.
Montecito? Like that's the thing.
Yeah, that would be crazy.
Right.
The thing about cold therapy is that it didn't exist, say, 10, 20 years ago. And if you would have told someone in the 80s, this is what we're going to do, they would be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But we've evolved and we've modernized a lot of things that maybe seem anterior to logic. What is it about cold therapy that you find to be so valuable and why it's a passion of yours?
Yeah. Well, I think the way we think about cold therapy now didn't exist in the 80s, but in reality, like it actually is an ancient practice. And I think that's a lot of what I do love and appreciate about it is like we're just modernizing how to do it, but the
Mm.
practice itself has existed for so long. So for me, it's honestly like the ritual aspect of it. That's something that I really cherish in my life. And as I think about it, actually, I think that really evolved over the COVID pandemic years. But the ritual of coming back to that space to literally just reset my body and that 2 minutes for me can be all that I get like for me in that day. It might be that I am not able to go take a walk and have all of that time or all the other things I would like to do. But if I get that, it literally transforms the energy in my body and I show up in a different way. I had a friend ask me the other day, she was like, "Do you think you can do like all the really hard things that you do because you cold plunge?" And I was like, yeah, I think I can because I show up and I show myself when I do that that it's not desirable. Nobody likes cold water. Like that it's not the thing you want to do, but as soon as you do it, you're like, "Oh my gosh, nope, there it is again."
Yeah.
It changes entirely how you feel and how you operate. And so for me, that's why I'm so passionate about it because it can be accessible to people as far as like, do you want to just go to a local body of water or do you want to have a temperature controlled one at your house? Like there's everything in between. And so my hope is to just inspire more people to take the leap to just give it a try. And I still don't like cold water, but I love how I feel afterwards.
It's interesting. I never really understood this until I started interviewing people that are
Yeah.
in this realm of understanding. And I got a pool back in like 2010 or 11.
Yeah.
And my whole goal was to keep the pool open as long as I could. And
Hmm.
in Missouri, it's usually around Memorial Day to Labor Day. And I'd
Yep.
always push it to maybe October. And I
Sure.
remember I would always come home from work and I would at least dive in once, no matter how cold it was, because it would still be
Hmm.
warm outside. And I always remember after I did that and I was done, it was a feeling that I'd never felt before, and it felt so good.
Yes.
And I couldn't put my finger on it, why it
Yep.
felt so good. Because I wasn't in there long. I'd go in, I'd go to the
Yep.
one end, I'd go to the other, and I'd get out. That was it. And it
Yep.
wasn't totally freezing, but it was chilly, but it was warm
Yeah.
out, and it was fine. And I knew I'd go inside and be fine. But that was the best physical feeling of doing something in that realm.
Yes.
I always remember that.
You do. You remember the physical feeling of it. You
Yeah,
really do, more than you would if you like push yourself for a really hard run or like
yeah,
something exerting yourself. It's a completely different feeling because it kind of comes from the inside out, I feel
yeah,
like.
yeah,
And I think, there's so much need for being able to reset your mind and like just balance out the stresses in life, especially now, that I think that's really where I come from is like, how can you really quickly just like hit that little reset button and be able to focus on the things that need your attention, let go of the things that don't, and to just flush away all of that stress and anxiety that we carry around, whether we actually realize it or not.
yeah. So what gets you up every day? What is the motivator for you to do the best job that you can and to also take care of yourself and your soul?
It's honestly to help. I feel like I did the hard path of trying to figure out how to feel better, and I found it. And so, therefore, I just want to pay that forward. I just want to help people, especially women, because I think there's so much value in doing this. Not that there's not for men, but I think there's more desire to just try it for men, and for women it can be a bigger hurdle. So if I can stand up and be like, hey, I don't actually like cold water either, but look how I feel, look at all the things that's changed, do you want to try it too? It's really that motivator of just trying to pay it forward and help other people live better lives, because it's just that ripple effect.
Yeah. So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into the 18-year-old version of you. You can give that young version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've led, the wisdom you've gained. What advice would you impart on that young version of you?
Follow your heart, because I'm a thinker, and I for so many years would just go from like, okay, this expert says to do this. I can follow this path and I know that it'll work. And as soon as I ditched doing that and really tuned into my heart and my intuition, everything changed. And so, just trusting that and knowing that it'll lead you where it is, like that would be the number one thing.
So let's say you walk into a room and there's all these people that have been clients, colleagues, people you've worked with, people you've helped in a business sense throughout all of these years, and you walk up to a podium and you can tell them one fun thing about you, one fun story, something they may not realize that would humanize you in a different sense. What would you tell them?
I secretly have always wanted to be a like famous backup dancer. So, not that I ever like the kid in me never like gave myself permission to go and do dance classes. So now I do them. I do them in a garage down the street from me, and it is my funnest thing that I look forward to. So it's like just follow the fun and do those things that light you up, and it doesn't matter like what the outcome is and what how you look doing it. Like just live it up and enjoy it.
Have you read Miranda July?
No.
She's very fascinating and interesting. And there's been segues in her books where she's danced. And I can
Oh.
tell it's something that was kind of in there, but it really makes she's one of my favorite authors of all time. You should look into her.
Oh.
But and she has a Portland vibe to her. So yeah, she's
Love it.
anyway, so yeah, you should check her out for sure.
I will. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So let me ask you this. Of everything that you've done and accomplished and evolved into at this point, what are you the proudest of?
Definitely the proudest of my current company, the ChillPod. So we have created a real what I started with was a horse trough to try the cold plunging. And as I was in there, I was like, nobody wants to sit in a horse trough. So how do we elevate this and make it better? And as I literally let my heart lead this project, it's just led from one thing to another. And it is the most beautiful and leaning into that human experience of cold plunging. It's just so different. And it comes out here in the spring. And I'm just so excited to share it with the world. I've secretly been like holding on to it for like a year. And the excitement to actually show it to the world is very real.
So at the end of the day, Kris, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Mm. I think I'm just a kind human who's trying to honestly just make the world a little bit better.
What's the biggest risk that you've ever taken in your life?
ChillPod.
Yeah.
I've self-funded it. I've done everything on my own. And that's always the first thing that people ask. They're like, so did you take on a bunch of funding? Like, how did you do this? I was like, nope, I figured out a way to do it myself. And
Wow.
so I'm really proud of that. And it was definitely the biggest risk I've ever taken.
What's the greatest thing about living in Portland?
Mm. We live in like a small community just outside of Portland, and there's a little lake here and like a very small community vibe to it. And I love raising my girls here. It's a good small community, and we have a really wonderful group of friends. Actually, my closest friends have now moved within half a mile of me. So I was the first one to plant down, and then they've come around. And so, yeah, I think just the community and, you put up with a lot of rain, and then when the sun comes through, you're like, oh, it's all worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. So if anyone wants to learn more about ChillPod, anything that you're doing, dive into your world, any questions, what's the best way for them to do that?
So you can connect with me on Instagram if you like, and that is Kris Rice Wellness. And then if you want to learn more about the ChillPod, you can go over to thechillpod.co and find out all about it. So
Okay.
I would love to share any and all of it.
Excellent, Kris. Thank you so much. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time. Best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much. It was great to talk to you.
Great talking to you. Hello, friends. Joe Dimino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedimino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words.